All right, so the first warm-up problem, this is what we learned in the isotopes lecture. You don't need to write this part down. Just a reminder, this is where you get the info for this. And we're looking for the neutrons in these two isotopes, okay? So let's start with iron 45. First thing we want to do is figure out the protons. So since it's iron, doesn't matter if it's 45, it's going to have 26 protons. Okay, it's just a number on top of the box. Okay, so this guy is going to have 26 protons. All right, and then we learned that this number right here is called the mass number. And the mass number, we get that by adding the protons and the neutrons. So if we want to find just the neutrons, it's super simple. We just need to take the mass number, which is 45. We're going to subtract 26. And then that is going to give us our answer. So if you do 45 minus 26, you should get 19 as your neutrons. Okay. Any questions on how we got that? Okay. So same thing as what we've been doing, just mass number minus protons. All right, we're going to do the same thing for chlorine 33. We have to look at chlorine on the periodic table. If you look at chlorine, how many protons does chlorine have? Yeah, 17, number on top. So we're going to have 17 protons. So in order to find neutrons, all we got to do is the mass number, 33 minus 17, and that should give you 16 neutrons, and that'll be your answer. Okay. So those will be the two answers for the first problem. Okay. All right, and again, this is what we learned in the isotopes lecture. All right, next question. We get this info from the previous one that we did. This is the ions lecture. And this one's a little different because we're looking for electrons. We're not looking for neutrons. Okay, but same thing. We want to start by finding the protons. So we're going to look at U and Se. So go to the periodic table. You'll see Se is 34 and U down here is 92. So we got 92 and 34. Okay, so 92 protons, 34 protons. Okay, the one thing that we need to keep in mind before we find the electrons is we need to look at the charge. So is it positive or is it negative? Okay. So if we take a look at U4 plus, okay, this one is positive, right? If the charge is positive, does that mean we have more protons or more neutrons? Yeah, more protons. So just keep that in mind. If this is a little confusing for you, make sure you jot this down somewhere. If the charge is positive, you got more protons. And if the charge is negative, it means you're going to have more electrons. Okay, so that kind of gives us a way to figure out if the number for the electron should be bigger or smaller than the protons. Okay. All right, so if we take a look at U4 plus, it's 92 protons and it's positive 4. Okay, so like we said, positive means more protons. And how many more? We have 4 more protons than electrons. So the number for electrons should be smaller than the protons. So it's 4 less, so just do minus 4, and you should get 88 electrons for this one. And again, it's because it's positive 4, so electrons has to be smaller than 92. And so easy way for you to check. All right. Next is Se3 minus. This one has a negative charge, which means we have more electrons. So the number should be bigger than 34. How much bigger? 3 bigger. So add 3, and you should get 37 electrons. Okay, so those are the answers for this one. Okay, so again, if the ion stuff is kind of confusing, I know positive, negative can get a little tricky. So make sure you guys have this written down somewhere. This will help you figure out which direction you should go when you're looking for electron. Okay, and again, you'll have more time to practice this in class today, so this will be helpful. And as usual, if you have any questions, please let me know. I can go over it. All right, but any questions on the old material, the stuff we've already learned? All right, so I'll give you guys 30 seconds to copy that down. But while you guys are copying that down, today, very short lecture, we're going to be learning about the 3 different types of elements on the periodic table. So just make sure you have your periodic table handy. Again, if you need it, there's more copies up here. And then we're gonna talk about how you can identify these types of elements, okay? All right, so you guys don't need to write all this down. I'll tell you guys what's important. This is, again, up on Canvas for you guys to look at. You don't need to memorize all of this. Some of the things will be pretty self-explanatory, but I'm just gonna, I'll tell you guys what you need to copy and memorize, okay? So the first type of element, and you wanna write this down, okay? They're called metals, okay? And they're exactly what you think they are, okay? We're all familiar with metals in our everyday life, okay? So you don't need to write all this down, just a name. The first type of element is metals. And like I said, they're the metals that you're familiar with. They're solids at room temperature. There's only one exception, which is mercury, which is a liquid. Metals are shiny. They conduct heat and electricity. They're ductile, which means you can make wires out of them. And they're also malleable, which means you can bend them without breaking them. Okay. Now, the one thing you guys do need to remember and memorize, and you might want to write this down, is this right here. Metals, they want to become cations. So they want to become positively charged, which means they want to lose electrons. Okay, that's the defining trait chemically for these metals. Metals, they want to lose electrons. All right, let's go on to the second type of element. So the second type of element on the periodic table, very creative name, they're nonmetals. Make sure you write that down. Nonmetals. Yeah, nonmetals are exactly what the name sounds like. They're not metals. So opposite of metals, they're brittle, which means you can't really bend them. They're gonna break. They crumple when you put force on them. They're not good at conducting heat or electricity, so you can't really make, pots and pans out of them. They could be solid, liquid, or gas. But the important thing chemically that we're going to be talking about later in the year is these guys want to become anions. They want to become negative, which means they want to gain electrons. Okay. That's the second type of element. All right, and then the last type of element, make sure you write this one down. They're called metalloids. And metalloids are kind of weird because they're like metals and nonmetals. There's no real strict pattern for what they're like. But we do use them in our everyday lives. We use them to make computer chips. They're semiconductors. And so they're pretty valuable right now. But I'll talk more about metalloids later, but we'll focus mostly on metals and nonmetals for this course. But any questions on the three types of elements? So again, you just need to know the three types. And then I'm going to show you guys how to find them on the periodic table. It's really easy. And then that's pretty much it for the new info today. All right, so let's go over how to find the three types of elements on the periodic table. So make sure you guys have your periodic table out because you're going to want to write on it a little bit. Now, you guys do not need to memorize what type of element every single atom is. There's only three things that you need to remember, and I'll tell you guys what those things are. And I'm going to try to make it as easy as possible for you guys to understand, okay? So let me zoom in a little. Okay. So there are three types and they're color coded up here. The yellow are the metals, the purple is the metalloids, and the green is the non-metals, okay? Now, you just need to remember the pattern for how to find them, okay? The first one, the pattern for the metals is super easy. They're going to be on the left and the middle of the periodic table. So if you want to jot that down on your periodic table somewhere, you can. You don't need to color your periodic table. If you really want to, you can. But just know that metals are on the left and the middle of the periodic table. So most elements are going to be metals. And they're going to be on the left and middle of the periodic table. And by middle, I also include this bottom part right here. So just keep that in mind. All right, let's move on to non-metals. Non-metals are very easy. They're on the opposite side, right? They're not metals, so they're going to be on the right side of the periodic table. Okay, the only exception to that rule is hydrogen. Okay, hydrogen is also a non-metal. So hydrogen is the only non-metal just hanging out by itself on the left. That's the only one you really have to memorize. Okay, so again, metals left and middle, non-metals are on the right, and then also hydrogen. And then for the metalloids, easy way to remember this is just think about where boron is. So you see boron on the periodic table right here. You're going to go boron, and then you just go diagonal down. Okay, so if you guys notice, if you go diagonal from boron, that's where the metalloids are. Okay. And that's pretty much it. Okay, now I'm going to give you guys a little cheat you guys can use for while you're in this class. If you're ever taking a test and you need to know if something is a metalloid, you guys can look right up there to your top right. Okay, do you guys see the periodic table hanging from the wall? Okay, if you look where the metalloids are, so find boron on the metalloids. You guys see that little gray staircase thing? It kind of goes like this up there on the poster. But everything that's next to it, the purple stuff, those are all metalloids. So if you ever have a problem with where they ask you for metalloids and you're in this class, just look up there, look for that gray staircase, the purple stuff, those are going to be your metalloids. Okay. And I'm never going to cover that up or take it down, so you'll always have that handy for you guys. So just keep that in mind. Okay, any questions on how to find these? All right, so I do have an example problem down here, but I'm not going to waste your time by going over it. If you really want to try it and check your answers with me, you can. But you will be doing this on your assignment, so I'm just going to get you guys started on your assignment. If you guys go to types of elements on Canvas, you guys will see the assignment, same thing as before. You'll have the quiz after. If you guys have any questions or need any help, please let me know. But I'll give you guys the rest of the class period to work on that assignment. All right.